The kitchen light was off, but I could see the glow of my father's phone flashlight bouncing off the walls. I heard the scratch of pen on paper, over and over and over. When I stepped into that doorway, I saw my mother's hand frozen mid-signature. My signature. My sister stood by the window, my lottery ticket in her hands, and all three of them looked at me like I'd just walked in on a murder. In a way, I had. They were killing the last bit of trust I had left. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, have you ever had family treat your success like it belonged to them? Drop a comment with your story. I read every single one. And if you think families like mine need to be called out, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story gets so much worse. Trust me, you'll want notifications on for this one. Now, let me take you back to how I ended up invisible in the first place. Look, I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I'm not someone who thinks the world owes me anything. I'm Roxanne Fletcher. I'm 29. I design brand packagers and logos for startups and coffee shops in Portland. I drink too much cold brew, I drive a 2011 Honda Fit with a dent in the passenger door, and up until about 2 months ago, I had convinced myself I was fine with being invisible. See, I grew up in one of those families where there's a star, and then there's everyone else. My younger sister Ashley, she was the star. Homecoming princess, college paid for, brand new Jeep Wrangler on her 17th birthday with a bow on top like a frickin' Lexus commercial. Meanwhile, I worked the closing shift at Target all through college and graduated with debt that felt like an anchor tied to my ankles. But I didn't complain. That's just how it was, you know? Some kids get the spotlight and some kids get really good at standing in the shadows. Then, on a random Tuesday in September, I bought a lottery ticket at a 7-Eleven on my way home from a client meeting. I do it maybe once a month, $5, a little daydream fuel. I checked the numbers 3 days later while waiting for my oat milk latte. I'd won $800,000. Not millions, not quit your job and buy an island money, but enough to finally breathe. Enough to pay off my loans, start my own studio, maybe travel somewhere that wasn't a discount flight to visit friends. For the first time in my life, I felt like I'd gotten something just for me. I told my best friend Simone first. She screamed so loud her dog started barking. Then she grabbed my shoulders and said, "Rox, do not tell your family yet. Get a lawyer. Protect yourself." I laughed it off. I mean, yeah, my parents had always favored Ashley, but they couldn't. God, I was so naive, because the moment I told them I'd won, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. And what I found underneath, it was so much uglier than I ever imagined. I need to give you some context about what it was like growing up as the other daughter in the Fletcher household. Picture this. Ashley's kindergarten finger paintings framed and hung in the hallway like we lived in the MoMA. My high school art portfolio that won a regional competition stuffed in a cardboard box in the garage between the Christmas decorations and a broken leaf blower. When Ashley wanted to start a jewelry making business at 19, my parents handed her $8,000 and turned the basement into her creative studio. She made exactly 3 necklaces, sold none of them, and the beads are probably still down there gathering dust. When I asked for $500 to buy design software for freelance work at 22, my dad told me that's what credit cards are for and went back to watching the Blazers game. I'm not saying I had a terrible childhood. We weren't broke. Nobody hit anybody. But there was this unspoken rule in our house. Ashley's dreams were investments. Mine were hobbies. Ashley's problems were family emergencies. Mine were learning experiences. And for years, I swallowed it. I told myself I was just more independent, more self-sufficient, the strong one, the one who didn't need help. But here's the thing about being the strong one. People start to believe you don't need anything. Not help, not acknowledgement, not even basic decency. So when that lottery ticket hit, when I saw those 6 numbers lined up like little soldiers on my phone screen, my first thought wasn't, I'm rich. It was, maybe now they'll finally see me. Simone, bless her, tried to shake that delusion right out of my skull. We were at her apartment. She'd insisted I come over immediately after I verified the numbers with the lottery website about 700 times. She poured us both oversized glasses of wine, even though it was 2 p.m. on a Friday. And we just stared at my phone on her coffee table like it might explode. "You know what you should do?" she said, her dark eyes serious in that way that meant she was about to hit me with truth I didn't want to hear. "You should tell them you won 10,000. That's it. Not 800,000. 10. Test the waters." I laughed at her, but it sounded hollow even to me. I mean, you think my own parents would. "Rox," she set down her wine glass. "I've known you since freshman year at Portland State. I've watched your mom forget your birthday 3 times. I've heard the way they talk about Ashley like she's Beyonce, and you're like a backup dancer who showed up to the wrong tour. I'm not saying they're bad people, but money makes people weird, and family makes people dangerous." His boyfriend Tyler, who was sprawled on their couch, gaming with his headphones half off, chimed in without looking away from the screen. "Dude, there's literally a subreddit about this, r/lottery winners or something. Every story is the same. Family comes out of the woodwork like roaches when the lights turn on." "That's a terrible metaphor," Simone told him. "But it's accurate," he shot back. They weren't wrong. I'd already spent the last 2 days scrolling through forums and news articles, reading nightmare after nightmare. Long-lost cousins demanding payouts, parents taking out loans against their kids' future winnings. One guy's brother literally tried to claim he'd bought the ticket and it got stolen. The internet was basically screaming at me, "Protect yourself. Trust no one." But here's the problem with being the invisible daughter for 29 years. You get really, really good at hoping. Hoping that this time they'll notice you. This time they'll be proud. This time you'll finally be enough. So I ignored Simone's advice. I ignored Tyler's horror stories. I ignored every red flag my gut was frantically waving. On Sunday morning, I drove to my parents' house in Beaverton with a box of those fancy croissants from the bakery my mom loves, the ones that cost $8 each, and the lottery ticket, now laminated and secured in my purse, and a heart full of stupid, stubborn optimism. I was going to tell them about the lottery win. I was going to watch their faces light up, and we were going to celebrate together like a normal family. I really believed that. I parked in the driveway behind Ashley's Jeep, still spotless, still perfect 6 years later, and walked up to the front door with those croissants in one hand and the lottery ticket, now laminated and secured in my purse, in the other. If I'd known what was waiting for me on the other side of that brunch table, I would have gotten back in my car, driven straight to a lawyer's office, and never looked back. But I didn't know. Not yet. So I rang the doorbell and smiled when my mother opened the door, already talking about how Ashley had such exciting news to share before I had even stepped inside. Yeah, that should have been my first clue. Sunday brunch at the Fletcher house was a tradition my mother guarded like it was a sacred ritual. Every week, same time, same table, same dynamic. My dad, Robert, would man the waffle iron while pretending he knew what he was doing. My mother, Diane, would arrange store-bought fruit like she'd hand-carved each melon ball. And Ashley would show up 20 minutes late with Starbucks because the coffee here tastes like dishwater. No offense. None taken, apparently. It never was. I walked into the dining room to find Ashley already holding court. Her 2 kids, Maddox, 6, and Harper, 4, destroying a plate of bacon while she scrolled through her phone. She'd recently cut her hair into this choppy bob that probably cost $300 and looked deliberately messy in that way that rich people call effortless. "Rox," my mother air-kissed near my cheek, the same way she greeted the mailman. "Oh, you brought croissants. How sweet. Ashley brought those acai parfait eggs from that new place downtown. They're incredible." Of course she did. We settled around the table, me between my dad and an empty chair that might as well have had my name engraved on it in invisible ink. The Spare. Ashley sat across from me in what I'd mentally dubbed the throne, her kids flanking her like tiny, sticky bodyguards. My father asked about work. I told him I'd just landed a client redesigning the branding for a local brewery. He nodded politely, the way you nod when someone tells you about their dream and you're already thinking about something else. That's great, honey, my mother said, not looking up from cutting Harper's waffle. Ashley, tell your father about the new Etsy shop idea. And just like that, the spotlight pivoted. Ashley lit up. Okay, so you know how the jewelry thing didn't really pan out? Well, I've been doing a ton of research and the market is literally so oversaturated. But candles, handmade soy candles with like crystal infusions and intention setting, that's the future. I bit into a croissant and said nothing. The jewelry thing didn't pan out because she'd made 3 necklaces and spent the rest of the money on supplies she never used. I knew this because she'd asked me to design her logo for free, and when I told her I'd do it for $200, 50% off my normal rate, she said I was being difficult. My mother was already nodding enthusiastically. I think that's wonderful, sweetheart. People love that spiritual stuff right now. This was it. This was my opening. I set down my croissant, took a breath, and jumped. Actually, I have some pretty big news too. 4 pairs of eyes turned to me. Well, 3. Harper was now finger painting with syrup. God, why was my heart pounding? I won the lottery. Not the big one, but I won $800,000. Silence. The kind that feels like the air's been vacuumed out of the room. Then my father blinked. You're serious? Dead serious. I checked it like 100 times. I already contacted the Oregon Lottery Commission. It's real. For exactly 4 seconds, I saw something on their faces that looked almost like pride. My mother's mouth opened, my father leaned back in his chair, Ashley's eyes went wide. Then my mother smiled, that tight, controlled smile she used when she was recalibrating, and reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Oh, Roxanne, that's wonderful, honey. Just wonderful. Well, I started carefully. I'm planning to pay off my student loans first, and then, of course, my mother interrupted, waving her hand like my loans were a minor footnote. But, speaking of financial stress, she glanced at Ashley with this loaded expression, the kind that probably had its own zip code. Your sister's been going through such a difficult time. Oh no. Ashley jumped in right on cue, her voice shifting into what I called her damsel mode, slightly breathy, eyes a little glassy. I didn't want to bring this up today, but since we're talking about money, my credit cards are totally max, like completely. And Josh's salary can only stretch so far with 2 kids, and the Etsy thing needs capital to even get started, and I don't know what we're gonna do. My mother squeezed Ashley's shoulder. My father looked at me with this expectant expression, like I'd just been handed a word problem and now it was time to solve it. Roxanne, my dad said slowly, you've always been the responsible one. The one with a good head on her shoulders. I'm sure you can see how this is an opportunity to help your sister get back on her feet. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How much debt are we talking about? 38,000, Ashley whispered, like saying it quietly made it smaller. I nearly choked on my coffee. 38. Ashley, what did you even buy? It's not about that, my mother cut in sharply. It's about family. You have more than enough now, and your sister needs help. That's what family does. The waffle in front of me suddenly looked like cardboard. Maddox was staring at me with those big, guileless kid eyes, and Harper had syrup in her hair, and everyone at this table was looking at me like I was the solution to a problem I didn't create. I need to think about this, I said finally. My mother's smile tightened. Of course, take your time. But her voice said the opposite. Her voice said, you already know what you're supposed to do. I left 20 minutes later, making up an excuse about a client call. No one tried to stop me. As I walked to my car, I could hear them through the open kitchen window already talking about how much the candle business would need to get started and if 38,000 would be enough or maybe 45 would cover everything. I sat in my Honda Fit, hands shaking on the steering wheel, and realized that Simone had been right. I just made a terrible mistake. I spent Monday in a fog, mechanically working on client projects while my brain replayed Sunday brunch on an endless loop. By Tuesday morning, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. Maybe they were just surprised. Maybe the money talk was just awkward family dynamics, the kind of thing that would blow over after everyone had time to process. Then my doorbell rang at 7:30 p.m. I was in yoga pants and an oversized Portland Timbers t-shirt, eating leftover pad thai straight from the container and watching The Great British Baking Show, my go-to comfort programming. I wasn't expecting anyone. Simone always texted first. My neighbors knew better than to bother me during bread week. I opened the door and found all three of them standing there like some kind of intervention task force. My father in his Costco khakis and a polo shirt. My mother in that cream cardigan she wore when she wanted to look approachable. And Ashley, arms crossed, wearing athleisure that probably cost more than my rent. "Oh," I said stupidly. "Hey, can we come in?" my mother asked. But she was already moving past me into my apartment, her eyes scanning my space with that expression she got when she was cataloging all my life choices she disapproved of. The IKEA furniture, the thrift store art, the fact that I was eating $5 takeout instead of meal prepping like a responsible adult. My father and Ashley filed in behind her. Nobody was smiling. "Is everything okay?" I asked, closing the door. My heart was already picking up speed, that primal part of my brain sending up flares. Did something happen? "We need to talk about Sunday," my father said, settling onto my couch without being invited. "About the lottery money." My mother perched on the armchair, spine straight, hands folded. Ashley hovered near the kitchen counter, picking at her cuticles, her tell for when she was anxious. "Okay," I said slowly, still standing. "What about it?" My mother took a breath, the kind she used before delivering bad news disguised as loving concern. "Roxanne, honey, we've been doing a lot of thinking, and we need to discuss what's fair." That word, fair, it hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Fair how?" I asked. "Your sister is in a very difficult position," my father said, jumping in with his reasonable dad voice. "She's drowning in debt. She's trying to start a business. She has 2 children to support." "And you," my mother interrupted, "have just been handed $800,000 that you did absolutely nothing to earn." I actually laughed. It came out sharp and bitter. "I bought the ticket." "With what, $5? Ashley finally spoke, her voice tight. "Come on, Rox, you got lucky. I've been working my ass off trying to build something, and I've gotten nothing but closed doors and credit card bills. You throw $5 at a gas station and suddenly you're set for life?" "I'm not set for life," I shot back. "After taxes, it's more like half that, and I have plans for it." "Plans?" my mother repeated, like the word tasted sour. "What plans? Paying off your loans? That's just cleaning up your own mess. We're talking about helping your family." My father leaned forward, elbows on his knees, going for the heart-to-heart angle. "Rox, you've always been the strong one, the independent one. Ashley needs help right now, and you're in a position to give it. We're not asking you to fund her entire life. We're asking you to do the right thing." "Which is exactly?" My voice was shaking now, adrenaline flooding my system. My mother didn't blink. $400,000. Half of what you won. The number hit me like a slap. Half? You want me to give Ashley half of what I won? "To balance things out," my mother said calmly. "Over the years, we've invested a lot in Ashley's education, her car, her opportunities. It's only fair that you share this windfall so things are even between you two." I stared at her. You want me to pay Ashley back for all the things you chose to give her and not me? That's not what this is, my father said, but his voice had an edge now. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're mad I got something you didn't give me, and now you want to redistribute it to maintain the status quo? Ashley's face flushed. You're being so selfish right now. I have kids, Roxanne. Kids who need stability. You're single. You have no debt. You could literally do whatever you want. I have $60,000 in student loans, and I worked 2 jobs to graduate while you got a free ride. I drove a dying car for 8 years while you got handed a Jeep. Don't you dare tell me I have no debt when I've been paying for everything myself since I was 18. Girls, my father started. No, my mother cut him off. Her voice went cold, ice cold, the voice she used when the discussion was over and the decree had been issued. Roxanne, you have until Friday to transfer $400,000 into Ashley's account. That gives you 3 days to do the right thing. And if I don't? The question came out smaller than I wanted it to. My mother stood, smoothing her cardigan, and for a second, I thought she might take it back, apologize, admit this was insane. Instead, she said, I hope you make the right decision, Roxanne. For everyone's sake. The door clicked shut. I stood in my apartment, still holding the pad thai container, my hands numb, my brain screaming static. 3 days. They'd given me 3 days to choose between financial security and being disowned by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I looked at my phone on the counter. Simone's last text was still there. Please tell me you didn't tell them the full amount. I'd ignored her. I'd ignored all the warnings. I'd walked right into this. And now I had 72 hours to figure out who I was going to be, the daughter who gave in or the woman who walked away. I woke up Friday morning with a pounding headache and the certainty that I'd made the right choice. I'd sent the email to my parents at 11:47 p.m. Thursday night. Calm, direct, final. I wasn't giving Ashley $400,000. I wasn't negotiating. I was offering to set up a $30,000 education fund for Maddox and Harper, managed by a financial advisor, and that was it. Take it or leave it. They'd left it. My mother's response came through at 6:23 a.m. You are no longer welcome in this family. Don't contact us again. No love, Mom, no signature, just a door slamming in my face via email. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt weirdly light, free almost, like I'd been holding my breath for 29 years and someone had finally told me I could exhale. I made coffee, showered, and was halfway through responding to client emails when I realized my spare house key, the one to my apartment. I'd left it at my parents' house years ago on their key rack in the mudroom, the emergency Roxanne key they'd insisted on having just in case. With everything that had happened, I wanted it back. I didn't want them having access to my space. Not anymore. I texted my mother, coming by to get my spare key. Will only take a minute. No response. Fine. I'd let myself in, grab it, and leave. I didn't need permission to retrieve my own property. I drove to Beaverton in the mid-morning lull, that weird time when everyone's already at work and the suburbs feel like a movie set waiting for actors. My parents' house looked exactly the same. Manicured lawn, tasteful wreath on the door, Ashley's Jeep in the driveway. Of course she was there. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway, my stomach tight. I wasn't scared. I was just done. I wanted this over. The front door was locked. I went around back. My parents never locked the back door during the day, a habit my father insisted was safe enough in this neighborhood. I turned the handle. It opened. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No TV murmuring, no dishwasher running, none of the ambient noise that usually filled the space. But I could hear voices. Low. Urgent. Coming from the kitchen. I froze in the mudroom, every instinct suddenly screaming at me to turn around and leave. But I didn't. I moved forward, my footsteps silent on the hardwood, and stopped just outside the kitchen doorway. No, the loop on the X is too big. Hers is tighter. Look. My mother's voice, sharp with concentration. I'm trying, Diane. This isn't exactly easy. My father, frustrated. Just do it again. We only get one shot at this. I stepped into the doorway. The scene in front of me felt surreal, like I'd walked into someone else's nightmare. My father sat at the kitchen table, hunched over a piece of paper, pen in hand. Scattered around him were at least a dozen sheets covered in signatures, my signature, over and over and over, some crossed out, some circled. My mother stood beside him, holding her phone, comparing his attempts to something on the screen, probably a photo of my actual signature. And Ashley. Ashley stood by the window holding a small rectangular piece of paper between her fingers like it was made of gold. My lottery ticket. The one I'd kept in the inner pocket of my purse. The purse I'd left on the couch during their visit. The visit where they had ambushed me with ultimatums while I'd been stupidly too distracted to notice one of them going through my things. What the hell are you doing? My voice came out steady, cold. I didn't even recognize it. All three of them jumped. My father dropped the pen. My mother's phone clattered on the counter. Ashley spun around, the ticket clutched to her chest. Roxanne, my mother started. You stole my lottery ticket. I was walking toward Ashley now, my vision tunneling. You came into my home, went through my purse, and stole my ticket. And now you're, what, practicing my signatures? You can forge the claim documents? This is still a family matter, my father said, standing up, trying to regain control. We were just committing fraud? I snapped. That's a felony. Multiple felonies, actually. Ashley backed up against the window, her face pale. You aren't going to help us. You made that clear. So we're helping ourselves. You don't need this money, Roxanne. We do. So you're going to steal it? It should have been shared in the first place, my mother shouted, her composure finally cracking. You didn't earn this. You got lucky, and now you're hoarding it like some kind of... Like it's mine? Because it is. I bought the ticket. I won. Not you, not Ashley, me. I held out my hand to Ashley. Give it back. She shook her head, gripping it tighter. No. Ashley, give me the ticket. Make me. For a second, I genuinely considered tackling my own sister in my parents' kitchen. Instead, I pulled out my phone. Here's the thing, I said, voice shaking now but steady enough. I registered that ticket with the Oregon Lottery Commission the day after I won. It's logged under my name, my ID, my signature, my real signature. I also took photos of the front and back and emailed them to myself with a timestamp. So even if you successfully forge my name and show up to claim it, they'll flag it immediately. You'll be arrested. All of you. My father's face went gray. My mother's mouth opened and closed. You're bluffing, Ashley whispered. I opened my email, turned the phone around, and showed her the message. Date stamped, photos attached, confirmation number from the Lottery Commission. Try me, I said. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Ashley's hands started to shake. Slowly, she extended the ticket toward me. I took it. My fingers were steadier than I expected. I'm leaving now, I said quietly. And if any of you contact me again, if you show up at my apartment, if you call me, if you even think about coming near me or my money, I will file a police report. I will press charges. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you tried to do. You wouldn't, my mother said, but her voice was thin, desperate. Watch me. I turned and walked out of that kitchen, through the mudroom, out the back door. Behind me, I heard my mother shouting something about betrayal, about family, about how she'd regret this. Ashley was crying. My father was silent. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a full minute, the lottery ticket in my lap, my whole body shaking with adrenaline. Then, I drove to the nearest police station and filed a report anyway. The officer who took my statement was a woman in her mid-40s named Detective Patricia Morales. She had kind eyes and the kind of no-nonsense energy that made me feel like I wasn't crazy for doing this. I showed her everything. The forged signature attempts I'd photographed on my phone before leaving, the timeline of events, the threatening texts my mother had sent after I'd left their house calling me a traitor and a selfish brat. "This is pretty cut and dry," Detective Morales said, reviewing the photos. "Attempted forgery, theft of property, potentially conspiracy to commit fraud. Do you want to press charges?" I hesitated. This was my family, my parents. The people who'd raised me, fed me, put a roof over my head for 18 years. Pressing charges felt nuclear, final. Then I remembered my father's hand scratching out my signature over and over, my mother coaching him, Ashley holding my ticket like it already belonged to her. "Yes," I said. "I want to press charges." Detective Morales nodded. "Smart. People get weird about lottery money. You'd be surprised how many families implode over way less than 800 grand. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised at all." I left the station with a case number and a restraining order application. Then I called the attorney Simone had recommended, a sharp-as-hell lawyer named Vanessa Jones who specialized in asset protection and family disputes. Her retainer was expensive, but I figured if I was going to defend nearly $1 million, I should probably invest in someone who knew what they were doing. Vanessa was blunt in the way I desperately needed. "Your family sounds like a nightmare," she said during our first meeting, sitting across from me in her downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. "But the good news is, you did everything right. You documented, you registered, you protected yourself. Now we make sure they can't touch you or your money." She filed injunctions, cease and desist letters, legal barriers that essentially built a fortress around me and my winnings. The Oregon Lottery Commission expedited my claim once they learned about the forgery attempt. Apparently, they take that stuff extremely seriously, which, thank God. 3 weeks after I walked out of my parents' kitchen, the money hit my account. $547,000 after taxes and fees. I stared at the number on my banking app for a solid 10 minutes, half expecting it to disappear. It didn't. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans, all of it. $60,000. Gone. Deleted. The rush I felt clicking that confirm payment button was better than any high I'd ever experienced. The second thing I did was call Simone. "It's done," I told her. "The money's in, I'm debt-free, and I never have to see my family again." She was quiet for a second. Then, "How do you feel?" Honestly, I felt like I'd been in a car accident and was still checking for broken bones. Numb, relieved, terrified, free. "I feel like I need therapy," I said. "Good, because I already found you one." Her name was Dr. Lori Newsom, and she had a cozy office in the Pearl District with plants everywhere and one of those white noise machines that made you feel like you were inside a very expensive, very calm cloud. I went twice a week for the first 3 months. We talked about family dynamics, golden child syndrome, the difference between guilt and obligation. She never once told me I should reconcile with my parents. She never said I was being too harsh or that family is family. Instead, she said things like, "You're allowed to protect yourself," and "Loyalty shouldn't cost you your peace." I cried a lot in that office. The kind of crying where you're not even sure what you're grieving, the family you had or the family you wished you'd had. Slowly, things started to shift. I blocked my parents on everything. Phone, email, social media. Ashley, too. I deleted old photos. I stopped driving past their neighborhood. I started saying, "I don't have a relationship with my family," when people asked about holidays. And I stopped apologizing for it. And you know what? The world didn't end. I bought a loft in downtown Portland. Nothing crazy, but it had exposed brick and huge windows, and it was mine. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each piece like I was building a life I actually wanted to live in. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a grumpy orange tabby I named Waffle because he had the same energy as a disgruntled breakfast food. I started my own design studio, Fletcher Creative Co., and within 6 months, I had more clients than I could handle. I built a life, a quiet, peaceful, beautiful life. But here's the thing about cutting off toxic family. You don't just lose them. You lose the fantasy of who they could have been. And sometimes, late at night, I still felt that loss like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. Simone and Tyler became my family. So did my friend group from college. People who showed up with wine and takeout when I was drowning in deadlines, who celebrated my wins without asking what they could get from them. I spent Thanksgiving at Simone's parents' house and realized for the first time what it felt like to be at a table where people actually liked each other. The legal fallout with my family was messy. The forgery investigation went forward despite my parents' attempts to claim it was a misunderstanding. Turns out, when you try to steal nearly $1 million, prosecutors don't really care about your excuses. They weren't convicted. My attorney and the DA worked out a deal where they admitted wrongdoing, paid fines, and accepted a suspended sentence. But the damage was done. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that my parents had to sell their house. Ashley's credit card debt, combined with the legal fees from the investigation, had become unmanageable. They downsized to a rental in Gresham. Ashley's husband, Josh, had filed for divorce 6 months after everything imploded. Apparently, watching your wife try to steal nearly $500,000 from her sister is a deal breaker, and he'd won primary custody of Maddox and Harper. Ashley was living with my parents, working retail, and from what I heard, absolutely miserable. I wish I could say I felt bad about it. I didn't. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe I should have had more empathy, more grace, more willingness to forgive. But here's what I learned in therapy. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. You don't owe people access to your life just because you share DNA. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away and never look back. A year after I caught them trying to forge my signature, I was sitting on my loft's balcony with a glass of wine, waffle purring on my lap, watching the sunset over the city. My studio had just signed its biggest client yet, a tech startup that wanted a full rebrand. My savings account was healthy, my therapy appointments had dropped to once a month, I had friends coming over for dinner in an hour. I thought about my mother's voice. You're choosing money over family. She was wrong. I hadn't chosen money. I chose myself, my safety, my future, my peace. The money just gave me the resources to do it. Simone texts me. Still on for tonight? Tyler's bringing that weird vegan cheese you pretended to like last time. I laughed and typed back, I actually like it, you heathen. See you at 7. I looked out at the city, my life, my choice, and realized something I'd never felt before. I was happy. Not the manic, desperate kind of happy, where you're trying to convince yourself everything is fine. The real kind. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need an audience. Winning the lottery didn't change who I was. I was the same person who worked 2 jobs through college, who drove a dying Honda Fit, who designed logos for coffee shops and startups. But it did reveal who everyone else was. My parents, who saw me as a resource, not a daughter. Ashley, who believed my success was something she was owed. And me. It revealed that I was stronger than I thought I was, braver than I'd given myself credit for, worthy of a life that didn't require me to shrink myself to make other people comfortable. People always say money can't buy happiness. And they're right. But it can buy freedom. It can buy safety. It can buy the space to figure out who you are when you're not constantly trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I finished my wine, scratched waffle behind the ears, and went inside to set the table for my real family, the one I chose. And I never looked back. So, here's my question for you. Was I wrong? Should I have given them the money to keep the peace? Or did I do the right thing choosing myself? Comment below. I genuinely want to hear your take. If the story hit home, smash that like button and subscribe because, unfortunately, I've got plenty more stories about families who think love comes with a price tag. Hit the bell so you don't miss them. And wherever you're watching from, drop your location in the comments. I love seeing where my people are. Thanks for being here.